right, everybody. Well, there's still some folks joining, and I'll let them come in as the session progresses here. But I want to welcome you to another session of Thursdays at 3. Really excited about our talk today. It is extremely timely because of where we are in the year and where we are as a subspecialty in healthcare. We're going to be talking about interventional glaucoma and especially how to implement it. And today, I've invited my friend, and frankly, it's a guy I've looked up to for a long time, Chuck Williamson Jr., to join me. Now, he's been the leader of the practice in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, for quite some time. And of course, we know his dad, who's had a long reputation there in the cataract and refractive world, and other members of your family, Chuck, but also now Blake, your baby brother, who doesn't need an introduction as well. But you've had the charge of implementing new things along the way over the years in our national meetings and meetings on the side. We've compared notes as to, you know, these doctors, man, they've got a lot of ideas, but how are we going to get these things implemented? And so today
Sure.
we're going to try to touch on just a portion of that um, as it relates to the customer experience. But before we do, we're going to be talking about interventional glaucoma. I have a marketing consultation firm that does, patient education, team education, and training. And so we've got a few financial disclosures, some of them in the glaucoma space. And it's relevant to this because we think that this is something that should be shouted from the mountaintops. As we go to a little bit of your background, Chuck, I want you to just compare what's going on with IG and do that while introducing yourself a little bit, how long you've been doing what you're doing, and then what IG is kind of what it's done in your practice as far as being a practice builder.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the warm introduction. Very much have enjoyed working with you over the years. For me at Williamson Eye Center, it's been 24 years of working with family. Not just my father, my uncles as well. I've got three uncles that have worked in the business, now my brother. And so it's been a wonderful experience as a general ophthalmology practice with several optometrists in the group. We've got six ophthalmologists and 13 optometrists and one PA over spread across 8 locations. And that has given us a really great opportunity to be a cataract and refractive surgery leader in our market of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Greater Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And so the opportunity to be a part in leading that group with different service line introductions has been something that's very special to me. I always kind of believe a little, when trying to launch a new service line, I kind of buy into the Kenny Rogers philosophy. If you're going to play the Game Boy, you better learn to play it right. And so that's what we've tried to do with this service line expansion into interventional glaucoma. I felt as though, uh, to be quite honest, the business of interventional glaucoma course at the ASCRS convention really was such a fulcrum moment for us, such a pendulum shift moment. And I think you said it best in the meetings. It's really a mindset
Hmm.
that we have to get into. So that's been a little bit different from a launch perspective because changing mindsets or creating a mindset and a culture within the practice of interventional glaucoma had a lot more moving parts than other service line expansions or service line startups. So it's been really interesting to take all of that in from the Biggs course and start to roll it out, implement it, and get the engine running.
Well, and we're going to talk about the Biggs course towards the end of our conversation because that's going to be happening again at Academy. And hopefully everybody who's on this call is going to be there because that's going to be a hands-on workshop looking at your data, figuring out how to implement it in your program approach to interventional glaucoma. Now, I want to start first, Chuck, with talking about what we always talk about first when we're talking about this category, which is why IG. I mean, why are we talking about this in the first place? And it might even be smart for me to just go back and say, why are we even doing these sessions on Thursdays? And the confession is, man, after being an administrator for 20 years, it was always very difficult to figure out where do we go for more information on how to implement these things that the doctors come back from these meetings with. Who's doing it best? How can I replicate it where I live? And how do I do it in a way that can be a sustainable business model? I feel like the doctors that I always worked with are less concerned about that, more concerned about whether or not things are going to benefit patients, and that's the way it should be. But it can be a lonely place to have to implement all of those new things, and a great pleasure too. Don't get me wrong; it's an honor to do that. But this is just meant to be a clearinghouse of where we can bring ideas and thoughts, and others can learn about how to implement new things. And this is one that, in particular, is special because one of the other things I like to say is this is one of the most righteous offerings that's ever happened in ophthalmology that,
Sure.
that pays. And it's because we know that glaucoma is a progressive disease and it's a sight-stealing disease. We all know on this call it's the silent thief, they call it, the second leading cause of blindness on the planet. And if not managed, it will continue to progress. And the first line has always been these amazing drops, these compounds, and these elements that we're putting in our eyes. And I think we've been as an industry very proud of them. And while the science is great, the implementation is frightening. And the reason I say that is because, and this will be a little bit of a soapbox, so bear with me, but when folks are on drops, it's very difficult for them to be compliant. Oftentimes they're on more than one. Oftentimes the drops are expensive. Compliance is very low because of how they put them in. There can be adverse events. They might fill them the first time, but then they don't fill them the second time, or there might be a weak gap in the middle. Some of them they'll take wrong as opposed to their other drops. One is, in the morning, one is in the morning and evening, one is 3 times a day. And these are some of our patients who need the most help and guidance, the ones who are more senior. And I believe, and it's a strong statement, but I believe that actually drop therapy as a first line treatment of glaucoma actually harms patients. Now, that's a big, ugly thing to say, right? Because the science is so good. But because we all fall under the illusion that once we put a patient on drops, that they are managed, when we know by the data and all of the articles, they're still progressing because of non-compliance or adverse events, then they are, we're both satisfied, the patient and us, with the management of that patient, and the progression is still taking place and stealing their sight. And so it's this false hope that we've put in this category. And the reason I think it becomes so important now is there's some technologies now that can make it easy to implement, a little bit more frictionless, to have something other than drops as a first line therapy. And then drops can be a nice bridge therapy between one intervention and the next intervention. Maybe that's laser, and maybe that's then, implantable pharmaceutical, procedural pharmaceutical offering. And so that's kind of the backdrop. But Chuck, how does that resonate with you in your practice? Because you have a lot of general ophthalmology as well. Um,
Right.
you feel like this is something that serves your patients better, the IG mindset?
100%. In fact, whenever we're launching a service line, we have a really basic four-legged stool that we sit on. And why is the second question that we ask ourselves. We first ask, okay, what is it we're going to be doing? Okay, why are we doing it? How are we going to do it? And when are we going to do it?
Mm,
And, I think from a perspective of getting into the why IG part, you know, when we talk about why we're doing something, we write a position paper out That's always been our standard practice. For the head of the practice, in my case, my dad, he's the medical director, but he puts a position paper out of why we're about to embark on this journey. And in our position paper, he wrote, interventional glaucoma, a better way to treat glaucoma.
Hmm.
And treat was very important in that subtitle. I think that the why part is in some ways very simple because we have seen studies like the light study and certainly the consensus protocols that have very smart physicians coming together sharing results of how they're treating their patients from an interventional perspective, and the medicine is just better. It really just is. And that's not, interestingly enough, something new. They had the idea that intervening early was better medicine years ago when SLT first came out. I think it was
Hmm.
'05, '04, something like that. But that was pre all of these new technologies that we have now today, where we can have this quiver full of arrows to be interventional. And aside from it being just better medicine, proven better medicine for patients who not only are non-compliant with eye drops, but have potentially other issues. The reality of treating with interventional glaucoma, in my opinion, is just more humane.
Hmm.
It really is. And I heard this the other day, and this is another sort of anecdotal comment, but uh, there was a provider that was talking to my dad at ACOS, and he said, "You know what I tell patients? I tell them, hey, the definition of insanity is to continue you on these drops and then check you 6 months later and maybe we'll add another drop and do it all over again. Or we can just stop this insanity and intervene, get your pressures lower, and keep the back of your eye healthy." So
Yeah. Well, first of all, there's a lot to comment on there. I didn't know you were doing the position paper. So smart. What a great way to get everybody on board, for one. And then also, I mean, there's a lot of young leaders on this call to look back and say, how did we make the decisions we made before? And to have that kind of dossier, that collection of decision making, can become fertile ground for good training for future leaders, right?
right.
Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the implementation side of this, Chuck, and I want to talk about how you started that, and in particular, how you looked at your own data internally. But before we do, I want everybody to know you can either, we really want this to be interactive, so you can, unmute and just interrupt us, or you can put a question in the chats, whatever you feel would be the most helpful. This is a casual conversation from somebody who's really done a good job of implementing this and really implementing it recently, right? The last 12 months has this become a real concerted effort for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been a recent labor of love for sure.
Tell us about what you did first, because you've got a lot of these patients around you. You've worked in the neighborhood, of your sites for so long, so it's easy to believe that all these patients are maybe out with their primary eye care provider with ODs, when we know another piece of data or another myth is that a lot of these patients actually they have found their way to ophthalmologists. 70% of them believe that they're under the care of an ophthalmologist, not in the primary eye care provider's office, which is was a learning for me. What did you do to look at your own data?
Yeah, so we started out and had and still have a great working relationship with Brevium. Brevium really helped us pull our data together to find out what was really happening and going on with our glaucoma patients in fine detail. we were able to drill into we were able to drill into a per provider group of glaucoma patients and find out, what was happening in terms of those patients coming back into the practice and seeing the provider again. We got to some degree, what we got was a dropout rate from patients who were seeing us routinely, seeing our ODs and our MDs routinely, and on a normal course of care, not really getting interventional care, just drop care. And so that was really sort of our wake up
Valley
call.
Eye Associates
That
offers the
that
most advanced eye care available. From routine
so
family care to advanced
I thought
ocular
maybe I
surgery,
thought maybe they had
we
a
offer a
question.
complete
Let me
range
just
of
mute it there
services,
quick.
including comprehensive eye exams, cataract surgery with lifestyle IOLs,
Keep going,
treatment
sir.
for glaucoma, cornea
no worries.
transplants, eye LASIK laser
So
vision correction, high
we literally
definition
just,
laser.
focused on what our initial information was. What are our glaucoma patients doing? Are they in the practice? Are they staying in the practice, returning, or are we losing them? And we found out early on that patients we had on drop therapy were leaving the practice at a rate of 55 to 58% versus patients, and I say they just weren't coming back within a year, is what I'm
Mhm.
referring to in terms of dropout rate. Patients who we had interventional procedures with, they were our retention rate was much stronger. We were retaining about 80% of those patients within that 1 year time period. So that was a very telling piece of data that Brevium was able to share with us. The
Well, and I
other,
want to just let's hold on that for a second because I want to just interpret this like on the ground for folks.
sure,
Patients who come in, they've got their exam, they're prescribed a drop. When they're sent back out on their way out there to schedule their next visit, right, or they get a reminder call card,
sure,
they will, let's say they miss that appointment that's 6 months down the road.
exactly,
I'm sure you might have an internal protocol to get those folks back in, but there's some kind of resistance or they don't fulfill. And now it's been a year and you haven't seen them.
right,
What you're basically saying is when patients have a drop recommendation, those patients are more likely to be lost to follow-up. But if there's a surgical intervention, they are far less likely to be lost to follow-up.
100%.
And
Yeah,
I
they
think that
take
makes sense, doesn't it? Because I mean, when you actually have something done, you're kind of like, okay, well, now I've got a surgeon, I'm under their care. They've done work on me, and I kind of know where my medical home is with them.
Mhm.
Whereas maybe drops feel a little bit more passive. Sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to establish that data piece because it's not just true at your practice.
Yeah, I think it's very simple when when you prescribe drops, and this is from my physicians, the patients just tend to take their condition, their disease, much less seriously than when you prescribe an interventional procedure. And I think that the challenge for us in stepping up to the plate was to try to implement an interventional glaucoma protocol in our practice so that not only we could uh, help our patients take their disease much more seriously, but in fact, that we could get patients who were coming back repeatedly, seeing us again and again and again, to intervention faster. Another data
Mhm.
piece that rolls into that comment is that we were also shown that it was taking us an average of 6 visits to get a patient into an interventional pipeline. So um, that was also very telling in terms of us putting on paper a position of YIG, and something that we were able to sit down with all of our providers, and pass out our
Yeah.
manifesto and say, hey, this is the way we're going to do things from now on.
Well, there's a couple things there that I want to also hammer home. That 6 visits is really telling. I'm curious to know what your target is now. We'll get to that. But back when I was an administrator, one of the things I needed to know is, okay, so what's our total overhead? Okay, how many total visits do we see in a year of any kind? And if you just simple math, okay, what's our basic, time value cost? Real estate, everything's burdened into that. What's it cost to see one patient on average? And what we found is that it's we actually can't if we're only doing office exams, we're way over our skis because it costs too much to see those patients for what a reimbursement might be. And I say that then in your case, you've got 6 of those before you even get to an intervention. Um, not to mention the part of, whether or not it's actually effective, during one of those 6 visits. Did you look at how long a time span that is for each of those, that average 6 visit? Is it 2 years? Is that a 3-year span? What is it?
Yeah, it was in between 2 years and 18 months, just from a
Okay.
general perspective.
Okay.
And look, we know what's happening. We knew what was happening, and to some degree, you can't catch all of it. But what was happening in a lot of cases with our patients is that we have having such a large internal optometry group. Those doctors were just churning those patients over, not for any other reason other than, to ensure they were compliant with their testing, and take care of them the best way that they knew how then.
Yeah.
And so that was the majority of that factor of 6 was those mid-level ODs who were bringing patients back for OCT, visual field, tonometry, et cetera. And so sitting down with them has been a real eye opener for them as we shared with them what churning patients can actually do. It can have patients not come back.
Hmm.
But sharing with them what our position was with the surgeons at the table has been something that was very, very helpful. It's one thing to sit down and have a meeting, right? It's one thing to have phone calls between providers. It's far different when words matter, and when you put them down on paper and you sit down with those providers and you say, this is what our position is. You have a part to play in this. Do you see anything in here that you have questions on? Because this is why we're gonna be doing interventional glaucoma. That's a lot different, in my opinion, from a leadership perspective. It's a lot different than just a casual meeting.
Yeah. Well, and you've got all that data going into that meeting. I wanna come back to that and pull on that thread for a moment. So you've got the system that is I say bolted on, right? You've got the subscription model with Brevium, and they're helping you go through your patient list and running a query, and it generates a report of likely candidates. I mean, what are we looking for in that list?
Yeah, absolutely. That's been a real blessing for us in terms of having a resource in Brevium that really shows us on a daily basis how many interventional glaucoma candidates we actually have on tap for that day, the next day, 2 weeks out. They're mining our system in modernizing medicine and pulling these patients who have this criteria for glaucoma that we dive deep into. And we start to take a look at their history. We start talking with the provider. We have one interventional glaucoma coordinator at this point, which has been great. And this is the person mining this data from Brevium. But with a, a group of patients that have been pre-identified as potential interventional glaucoma candidates, we're able to go out and share with the individual provider teams, hey, optometrist, you have these groups of patients coming in. You know about why IG because Dr. Williamson has spelled it out for you. So, an interventional glaucoma consult with our ophthalmology partner at your location is the next step. We're able to share that because of the database that we've been provided with. Otherwise, we'd be digging through, you know, just bland appointment schedules and trying to really, lift the mountain.
Right.
Brevium's, it's having that interventional glaucoma candidate list has shortcutted for us all of our communications with our providers pre exam or pre clinic day for those patients that are coming in that do qualify for an IG consult referral. For the MDs, it's simply at this particular point, they simply want to know, all right, well, what kind of interventional glaucoma procedure or treatment can I do for this group of patients that are coming in to see me? And so we're working that out with their teams on a daily basis, providing them, an updated list of what IG treatments are available at their disposal.
Okay, so you said, so you've got now these lists of likely prospects, patients who could benefit from an intervention. Um, and you're taking those to the individual sites, right, that are appropriate for where that patient does their care. Give me the mechanics of what happens next. Did they reach out directly to the patient? Is it just the next time the patient comes in that we're more educational and direct talking about IG? You mentioned an IG consult. That's a new term. What
Yeah.
happens with that list?
Yeah, so relative to the patients on the OD schedule, that list is we have an accountability loop for those lists weekly. We're checking to see which patients made it onto an IG consult schedule for an MD. So we're taking the whole of the OD lists, and it's due, every Friday. And we're looking at what percentage of those patients actually made it over for an IG consult with one of our ophthalmologists. So that's an important metric because it gives us the ability to go back and have continued communication with our ODs about what kind of referral throughput we're getting. And for the MDs, we want to know if their group was coming in for an IG consult, those IG candidates coming in, which one of those had or has been put on a surgery schedule for an interventional treatment? So those are our two feedback loops, very basic
Mhm.
numbers and percentages.
And what are you
So
finding from our earlier conversation? I think you were telling me, and I think it was you, that in this, the good news is the feedback loop is working, right?
right,
The tough news is now we're running out of spots for the IG consults, right?
right.
And
Yeah.
so tell us about that.
Yeah, how do you find spots for IG consults that are created from your OD lists? It's tough. Our providers are booked out, practically 4 weeks. So in terms of getting those patients in to have a consult. In some cases, we're having to schedule. It's not been too terribly aggravating for the patients to come in for an IG consult with one of our ophthalmologists a month out because they've just seen the optometrist, right? So in their mind, they've just had an appointment and they're following up within a month. In many cases, we just simply double and triple book.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and some of those consultations I would imagine can be pretty short, especially if you've got the history of the patient, you've already got the notes from the OD coming in. We're just confirming something and perhaps taking them away to. Do you do any same day treatments?
No, we do not.
Yeah. I've not explored that yet from a compliance standpoint. So in case anybody was wondering whether or not you can or can't, I'm not sure. But I believe that everything we've talked about before with how to implement cataract surgery or refractive cataract surgery or even LASIK, all those rules now still apply, right?
Right.
So I imagine having an IG coordinator internally who's going to be responsible for keeping track of these folks as they leave the OD, come over to the MD to make sure they're getting intervened upon, and then safely back with their primary eye care provider at their wish. Um, we
Yeah,
we have gone through one slide, Chuck, and I just want to. This is going so well. I just want to make sure we leave some time for folks on the call, because you and I could talk about this all day, to ask questions. I know we've got some practice leaders on, and we've got a couple of folks, from Brevium, some other industry folks as well. Anybody have any questions? You're welcome to just unmute and ask if you'd like. Okay. One of the things that I have been thinking
we
about.
answered it for him.
What's that?
We answered it for him,
Yeah,
Matt.
you're so complete with your answers. Um, is that some practices are considering doing kind of an all call to those patients, in a larger form than just maybe this week, next week, or this month, to let everybody know, hey, there's some new solutions, and you might want to come to our interventional glaucoma seminar, right? So they understand that even if we haven't got to them, or they're not coming up in our queue quite yet, that we're doing our job of communicating about the value of this new category and how their vision can be affected in a positive way, and maybe their life better too, with maybe not quite as much of a drop burden. Um, that's, by the way, some of the most powerful marketing to do, is the type of communication with people who've already said they like you, they're already your patients, or just communicating something that is why they see you in the first place. And then it builds you up as the authority in your category, when you do those educational sessions, which is great for your own brand long term. And I've seen those work pretty well. I want to come back to one data point that I said I would, Chuck, and that's that. You said it took 6 visits before an intervention. What is your goal, and where are you now?
Yeah, right. So our goal is we want to cut that in half. I think it's a attainable goal, especially now that we have our platform rolling. We feel like it's rolling, and everybody knows what they're supposed to do. The tech teams know what they're supposed to do for the OD teams, MD teams, surgery schedulers. And in fact, our communication with our technician teams and our billing and reimbursement department pre-visit, pre-interventional glaucoma consult visit has never been better. So right now, I don't have a data point as to whether or not we're down to 5 or down to 4. We really started this journey, um, quite frankly, earlier at the beginning of the year. So, I think now that we're through 6 months, we can take a look at how quickly we're getting patients into an interventional pipeline from the visit stage. But I don't have that number just yet.
Yeah, that's okay. By the way, it's impressive to think about, right? You think about how far your surgeons are scheduled out, how many of these patients might be currently lost to follow-up, right, from your own data. How many of them are on a drop therapy and haven't had an intervention. But removing 3 visits before, like on average, before an intervention, should create some serious capacity for you to
Sure.
continue to deliver on the promise. And it'll take a while for the system to catch up with itself. But I really like that you've got that kind of defined goal and a way to look at it. I want to mention one thing. So we've got somebody on the uh, we've got Rachel from my team on here, and she's helping run the session. But we've also got some friends on from Brevium. And last week, if you were part of it, we had Creed Walker, who helps with development for Brevium, and he was talking about IG and how these lists have been so helpful for their existing client base. I'm going to have Rachel put his contact information in the chat, because I think if you're a Brevium client or aren't, uh, even if you're not, the data that you can pull from your own system to make good decisions and help your business, um, so important. Basic 101 first step should be that you have that kind of data at your fingertips. at your fingertips. Secondly, and more importantly, um, it's better care for the patient. And so, really, um, they are the white coats on the call that can help you set that up. And I just want to make sure that, um, and Rachel, by the way, if you don't have it, we can have somebody from Brevium put it in the chat. I'm sure somebody has it. And Creed's on the call as well if you've got questions for him on here. Patty Kirschmeyer just said that they're just launching IG as well. Managing the increased surgery time versus clinic time is going to be a struggle. But it's an exciting time in glaucoma care. I think that's right. I think that it's kind of, I'm going to sound crazy here, but this kind of feels like it did in the pre-LASIK days when we're looking at this mammoth market from a business standpoint. I mean, it feels even weird saying it because it's in
Yep.
a sight stealing disease, but there's just so much work to be done. And the reimbursement is still good because the procedures aren't, you know, they're not the most simple to do. And so we've got a lot of people to help that are stuck either not getting into practices or waiting for intervention. And so it is a good time. Um, what other
Interesting.
questions do we have from our panel? Go ahead, Chuck.
I was just going to say, it's interesting that you mentioned LASIK because before we decided to put an interventional glaucoma coordinator into place, I was looking at it from a bean counting perspective, which is my background. And I said, well, golly, we're gonna have somebody come in. We can't just do this with the scribes, the physicians, get them on board, and really roll it out that way. And my dad made an interesting point. He said, well, if you look at what we're doing for LASIK, we have LASIK coordinators in place. And you look at what's happened in that market, which is a complete degradation over the last 3 years. And you look at something that's on the rise and has been on the rise over the last 3 years, going higher. Why would you not treat this service line the same as you treat this other service line in terms of resource allocation? So,
It's exactly right. And the same people, frankly, who are gifted at following up on one will likely be gifted at following up on the other. You're exactly right. And by the way, there's other things that are great from a business standpoint. It doesn't require the same heavy lift from a marketing communication standpoint either. You've already got them. It's just
right.
good care. Um, and so we'll kind of continue on here with our conversations about IG. It'll be probably a monthly at least topic on these sessions. But Chuck, I just want to, for the sake of time, because we try to keep these between 30 and 45 minutes, but just give us what should be someone's best first step if they're thinking about implementing IG or as they get to where you are in its implementation.
Yeah, I think to me the best first step is figuring out your way to let your entire practice know that you are going to invest in IG and that interventional glaucoma is going to become part of your culture. We did that by having, our group meetings with our MDs and ODs present. And then we met with each team with their provider present. And like I said, we had a position paper in hand, that was a simple 2-page read that spelled out, what it is that we were going to do. I think that that's a crucial first step. And then I think next is you really want to in my opinion, have access to the patients in such a way that um, you can on a weekly basis or on a daily basis see what IG candidates you have coming in the door based upon the records in your EMR system. And
Hmm.
and for us, that sort of paved the way to putting an IG coordinator in place to go through those records and share with those teams what patients were candidates coming in through our doors. I think that's a great second step.
I think that's great. And like both um, I think it was Patty who said it earlier, or and you said it as well. Um, you will run into some constraints by way of throughput, and so we'll have to learn how to handle those things along the way as you grow this. Rachel, I'm going to have you put up kind of our slide that's talking about the things that are coming up in this category. Um, Everybody, you can join us in Orlando at the American Academy of Ophthalmology on the Thursday before the session officially starts. There is a Business of Interventional Glaucoma course. You can see we're just getting it pulled up there. You can see the QR code. You can snap that. We really love to have a doctor there and a team member, or a team member there and an administrator. We feel like if you go learn things together, you hold each other accountable. It's much more simple to implement when you've got more than one person on the line, in the room. We'll go through scenarios like this. Chuck will come to sessions like that with actual slides and data of, times it's taken to get to intervention, all the things that he's been working on, as well as a bunch of others who have implemented it in their program. So that'll be a good course. In addition, we'd like you to, if you can, in the remaining minutes we have, write in the chats, or you can respond to the email you received on this. We want to hear from you on coursework or talks that you'd like to hear from us on in this forum on a weekly basis. Recently, we've done some on implementing the light adjustable lens. How do you talk to patients about which implant might be right for them? How do you do team training? Next week, we're going to be talking with our friend Carrie Jacobs, who I'm meeting with downstairs at the OWL Leadership Summit right after this here in Denver. But she's going to be talking about building a team culture that patients remember and notice. So, that is the work we have to do on top of, of the procedural based work that we're working on every day as well. And so these sessions, I think, are going to become more and more important. So bring a friend, tell others, and thanks for joining us. Chuck, I got to tell you, it's so fun doing this with you. I learn something every time, and it gives me a lot of energy for what we're trying to accomplish.
Me too. I enjoyed it. It was wonderful.
And everybody, thanks. It looks like we put the information out there, but you couldn't see Creed Walker's info, so we'll send an email with that after today's session. So if you need to reach out to him, you can on implementing Brevium as a supportive way to do IG. Thanks, Chuck. Enjoy Wyoming, and everybody enjoy the rest of your summer. We'll see you next week, and have a great day.
Thanks, Chuck and Matt. Thanks.
Thank you.